Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the pregame cheat sheet sponsored by Gates Barbecue. I'm Darren Smith, along with my co-host, Mr. Steve Walls, and we are here, of course, as we welcome you to the pregame show as the Kansas City Chiefs host the Los Angeles Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, here at Arrowhead Stadium with the 3:25 kickoff in just a little under an hour. Steve, what's going on with you, man?
I'm good, man. It's football weather. It's about 40 degrees and a little breeze. But, I think today's going to be a great game.
It was interesting. Obviously, when the day started, it was raining and
Yeah.
stuff, and I would look out on the field, nothing but sunny skies. So the Chiefs, of course, coming to today's game, they're the number one team in the AFC, sitting at 8-2. We got the defending Super Bowl champions at 3-7. They're without the starting quarterback Matthew Stafford. They're also without their wide receiver Cooper Kupp. They have a backup plan for them today, starting for them today, by the name of Bryce Perkins. Your thoughts on what to expect from the Rams in today's game?
This is going to be interesting because, if you just go off of, the previous games of when the Chiefs had to face a quarterback whom they've never seen before, they struggle a little bit, especially quarterbacks that are able to be mobile and throw the ball, i.e. last year at the end of the season going against Drew Lock. Like they hadn't really seen Drew before, and he was able to do some things as far as with his legs that this defense wasn't ready for. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, it would be the same defense that they played, last year, but I think something similar. However, Spags is going to have to, we say it all the time, do some things the Bill Belichick way, and draw some things up that quarterback has never seen before.
What's interesting is, if you look at Vegas, and I'm someone who does, of course. So the Chiefs are 15.5-point favorite. I don't remember the Chiefs ever been that large of a favorite. We've been covering that thing in some time,
Yeah.
and to have that against the defending Super Bowl champions, I know Jalen Ramsey was asked that question on Friday at practice, and he said, that they don't look at, he said that's for bettors and stuff like that, but he said that, we don't.
Baloney.
Well, he said that he didn't think that it was disrespect. He said it was to be expected. He said, but what did you see? He didn't expect to be the favorites coming into this game, especially if you're without Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. But on the other side, they still have that defense. Granted, they might not be able to put the points, but doesn't mean that defense can't show up today and make it a tough ball game for Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree. Super Bowl winning team, Super Bowl winning defense, right?
Yeah.
The top NFL player as far as the defensive player is one Aaron Donald, and I think when you look at how that defense is shaped around Aaron Donald, even though to me he hasn't been the same as effective as he was, let's say 2 years ago or even last year in Super Bowl. Now, I know it was.
Do you think a lot of it has to be because of that retirement talk that he had in the offseason?
No, I think last year what made it a little bit easier for him because of Von Miller,
yeah.
of course. And now he doesn't have Von, and it's the weight is totally on his shoulders, right? I'm not saying that they don't have any other pieces around him, especially secondary.
They did bring in Bobby Wagner. He was a Super Bowl champion as well.
But I think being on that defensive line, Von Miller commands a lot of attention.
That's true.
And I think they played off of each other a whole lot, and I feel like that was it. Now coming into this year, it's back to before they had Von, and he's older. I think time waits for no man, and so I think that age sometimes catches up with you.
Look, the last time these two teams played, Steve, you and I, we were there in Los Angeles. They faced off. The game was supposed to be played in Mexico City. And because of the field, they moved it to the Los Angeles Coliseum back in 2018. The Chiefs lost that game in a shootout, 54-51. And that team was led by Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. And what's interesting is that I keep telling people 105 points were scored in that game. And people talk about the Buffalo game being the greatest game ever. Like, no, you would have had to have been there in L.A. to understand the atmosphere that game, because it had a Super Bowl feel to it, because the way those teams were playing, they were expected to play each other, as the season progressed in the Super Bowl. Rams made it. Chiefs fell in the AFC Championship game. But, that was a game we saw Patrick Mahomes have 6 touchdowns and 5 turnovers, 3 interceptions, and 2 fumbles. And they still had a chance to win the game at the end until Marcus Peters intercepted Mahomes on their last drive.
Yeah, that game goes down to all-time classic just for me.
Yeah.
For me, being there is something different than watching it on TV, even being in the stands. We were down right there on the field, seeing it field level. So that, I think, that was a little bit different. But I would say that the Buffalo Bills game, to me, just by how it ended, I think that was probably one of my all-time favorite Chiefs games
And,
to be
and,
there
and
to
look, and don't get
watch.
me wrong. To me, that game was good, but it didn't get good to like literally the last 5 minutes of the
Yeah,
ball game. I
yeah.
mean, at least with the one we talked about in 2018, it was good right off the bat
And
from
and
beginning
and
to
and,
end.
and there were so many storylines with that. I mean,
Yeah,
you had the Marcus Peters, you had the Patrick Mahomes matchup, with just their
and that was essentially
defense,
Kareem Hunt's last
and that
game
was
as well.
yeah. So there were so many storylines for that game, and I think with just seeing that and then seeing that Buffalo Bills game, we didn't expect it to end like that. I mean, just the
Yeah,
whole 13 seconds, them being able to march down the field, walk off. I mean, and then going to
overtime.
going over. So I just think that game just takes the cake, especially being in the same division as well.
Yeah, and look, and of course, when you go back and look at that particular game, there's only so many players that are still here from that game. I think the only person on defense that might have been here is Chris Jones, and I think, as I remember, I think Chris Jones was the only defender
On defense.
on defense.
Yep.
I thought it might have been one of the linemen, but yeah,
Yep.
I know he was the only one. And then on offense, you're looking at Patrick and Travis. And well, Marcus. I mean, it could have been some other players that were on the practice squad or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it wasn't not that
Blake
many
Bell. I
players.
believe Blake Bell was not on that team.
Yeah. So I mean, to let you know, it was a lot. That was a hell of a ball game to where we are where we are right now. But looking at that again, the defending Super Bowl champions at 3-7. They've been riddled with injuries. Steve Matthew Stafford had 2 concussions within the last couple of weeks. His shoulder is messed up as well. There are reports that he might not be back the rest of the season. Cooper Kupp has been on IR with that high ankle sprain that he suffered a few weeks ago as well. I mean, I expect that we'll see a lot of Cam Akers today, especially if you're the Rams and trying to keep Patrick and them off the field, but also some Allen Robinson, who we haven't seen or heard much from most of the season due to Matthew Stafford always looking for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, but I mean, there's still when you think about sliding in a new QB. Of course, he's gotten some work, the past few days leading up to this game. But still, at game time, when you hear it, we hear players talk about it all the time. Just those live bullets being thrown at you and fired at you, and they haven't had that, right? They've only had walk through air, maybe a little bit of light defense on them. But it just I don't know how they're going to be able to be on the same page within just a short week. And Allen Robinson is in a new program already, as far as going from what was it, the Chicago Bears
yeah.
over to the Rams, even with the new team. So he and Matthew Stafford weren't on the same page all the time. They were just kind of getting into a groove. And so I think now you throw a new, same system, but just new QB. And sometimes those little tendencies can throw guys off.
Also, want to make note that for the Chiefs today, their guard Joe Thuney will be out of today's game, along with Juan Thornhill. They both suffered injuries last week, so they'll be out in today's game. But look, again, 15.5-point favorites. At the end of the day, Chiefs fans are going to expect Kansas City to roll in today's game. Now, look, there's some players that we expect good things from. One, Frank Clark returns to Kansas City today, returns to the starting lineup coming off of a 2-game suspension. What are you expecting? What are your expectations of Frank in today's game?
I think there'll be, like Steve Spagnuolo said, there's going to be some rest. I think, anytime a guy has to take multiple games off, he was still around the facility after the first week. So I just think he's going to have some rest, and he may be on that pitch count like we saw with Willie Gay. Earlier it was 3 weeks ago, and so I just think he's going to take him a while to get. Now he was balling leading up to that.
It's funny you said it. I was with Frank on Friday evening, and we were talking, and he didn't mind disclosing this, but he did say he expects to have 2 sacks in today's game. I mean, that's what he told me. Because we were having a conversation now in 2019. You and I, we were doing our pregame show on the field, and Frank would always come by and tell me what he was going to do in the game, if he was going to get a sack or 2. And then after the game, we, laugh and joke about it because he would go out and do it. So he said, Darren, I'm gonna have 2 sacks in the game Sunday. So I'm gonna see what he does, because we're gonna see him in the locker room after the game. But he's excited about this game, but also was with George Karlaftis as well, the rookie, and George is he's looking forward to today's game, and just talking to him, aside from from what we do in the locker room and stuff like that, real good guy, real good kid, man. And I expect, because one of the questions that I had asked him was if he felt like he's hit a wall this late into the season, and he was like, no. And he told me that he hadn't, only because they've been utilizing him, to where he's not, because he's not starting, he's not, getting a lot of snaps as you would expect as a starter to get. But he said that he's been fine. He hadn't hit a wall, and there is a game that they have circled that the team has had circled coming into this year. It's not this game, but it's the game coming up after this.
Oh, of course. I mean, especially, defense. The defense should have that game circled.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And
we'll talk more about that on the Red Hour.
But hopefully both Joe Burrow and the starting receiver is playing. He's not playing this week.
Yeah.
So
Jamar Chase. Yeah. So but anyway, back to this game. Here at Arrowhead Stadium, Steve Walsh, Darren Smith, pregame cheat sheet. 3:25 kickoff. You got the Chiefs, you got the Rams, and to be honest, this game should have been played, 4 years ago in the rematch for the Super Bowl, and perhaps they probably should have played last year, which they should have played each other last year in Los Angeles, and that was the expectations going into the championship games. Steve, let's go on the offensive side of football for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, another 3-touchdown game last week to Travis Kelce, and Kelce, of course, was the AFC Player of the Week, 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards receiving. He's number 6 in the league right now in total yardage for a receiver, sitting behind the likes of Devontae Adams and others. Your thoughts on what we've seen week in, week out, year in, year out with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce?
I mean, I've been saying. I'm just kind of like beating a dead horse, but like I've been saying that when we look at just Tom Brady, because there's only one duo talking tight end QB that folks look at as all time greats. Yeah. That's Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. Now Gronk has always been Brady's constant. Like in trouble, I'm going to Gronk. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes, and so I feel like, no matter what's happening around him, no Tyreek Hill, no Demarcus Robinson, no other, Sammy Watkins, those guys are my constant that's always been here, always been true to me, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And they just happen to be just great friends too.
Yeah, because I was gonna. It's easy for us because we're inside the bubble, so to speak. But for folks who are outside and for just by what they see on television. Mm-hmm. Kind of dive into the more, because it is true what you say. You look at, Brady and Gronk, hell, they've done commercials. He brought him out of retirement, took him down to Tampa. They got into the Super Bowl down there. But how important and how vital is it for that relationship? Because again, knowing that, at least in that particular instance with Brady and Gronk and Patrick and Kelce, they are your go-to guys when you get in trouble, especially when your receivers are locked up and your running game right there. You can count on your tight end to continue to stretch the field, move the chains and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's very important. I think it's vital as far as like the way a relationship goes between a QB and a receiver. Granted, he's a tight end. However, he isn't expected to block much. He's expected to go down and catch the football. So I think with that being said,
and to your point, people kind of forget that. He can block. That is a specialty of his.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that he said that he worked on, as well as him being his attitude. I saw someone post on social media back when, I think this was 2014 or maybe it's 2015, when a bad call on Travis Kelce, or it was a no call, and Travis threw his flag his towel as a flag at the ref. And just he had a bunch of like immature things like that he did.
2017, 2018.
Yeah. But I think now, being 4 or 5 years later, he's grown a lot. And the difference between Patrick and Travis and the way that, Boston, the Patriots, they had their thing, is age, right? Like I think Tom Brady was a little bit older than Gronk. much older than Gronk. And it's vice versa. Same thing with Kelce and Mahomes. Yeah, Kelce's the older. Yeah. So I think he's been able to help Patrick kind of ease his way in there and be great.
We look at this on the offensive side of football for the Chiefs. Last week's game against the Chargers, again, another Sunday night miracle, so to speak, another come from behind. They scored with about 1 minute and 46 left on the game. And then, of course, what happened? Patrick Mahomes happened, and they Kelsey'd him once again. The rookies or the young players stepped up big in the absence of the veterans. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire go down in the ball game. We saw Kadarius Toney go down.
Mm-hmm.
Who steps up? Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie who got the start, 105, I think 107 yards
106.
on 15 carries.
Yep.
You had Sky Moore with 68 receiving yards. Justin Watson also stepped up. Talk about the play. Look, and I, post game I asked Mahomes, asked Kelsey their thoughts, but your thoughts on these young players stepping up and how valuable that is.
It's Andy Reid says as always, he gives credit to Brett Veach, how they're able to draft. I mean, seems like they find some diamonds in the rough, right? Like, I mean, you get a 7th round guy like Isaiah Pacheco from Rutgers of all schools, right? Like, I think that being said, to me, and, we've talked about it, even when we saw him at training camp, he's playing like a starter. He's practicing like a starter. Like, he should be out there. And we've said that. And now it's coming to fruition, right? And he's starting as the RB1, and then Clyde goes down. So it's like, all right, now I really have no worries. I just go out there and ball, right? So that being said, from his standpoint, I think it brings in a lot of confidence, even though he came in with it, and the guys just stand with him, right? Like, keep going. And the other thing about that is when you look at these other guys, the receivers, the Sky Moores, they didn't get down on Sky when he fumbled twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a couple of plays where it was on special teams where it could have cost the team the game, and I think in Indianapolis it did. It started that domino effect where they just didn't play well, and so I think now he's been able to come into his own because we talked about how rough it is doing special teams, especially punt return, and then trying to play receiver. Tyreek did it. Once they pulled Tyreek from, doing all the gadget stuff and put him in directly as receiver. Now, he did some gadget things, but I think that's when he took off. McCall didn't do punt return. He took off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they moved him from it. And so now he's able to go back in there and spurge just like Tyreek Hill did. And so that I think that'll be Scott Moore, even though I don't feel like he'll go back and do punt return
No,
anymore.
I think I heard I think Trent McDuffie is going to be returning kicks for.
Oh, sheesh.
Hello.
I mean, I know he did it in college, but it's just the faith that this team has in these young guys, man. Like, and we've seen it though. We've seen how Tyree go down and Demarcus Robinson the next week get step up.
Yeah.
We've seen Demarcus Robinson not be his day. Still no Tyreek Hill, Byron Pringle step up.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've seen these guys or Patrick being able to find the guys like, all right, man, I'm gonna come to you. Just be ready.
And to that point, we will see the return of Juju Smith-Schuster in today's game. Mm-hmm. He'll be back in the starting lineup for Kansas City and the Chiefs. Of course, he was off. Well, he was out last week with the concussion that he suffered against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But looking at this, look, we've got there's just going to be a lot. Respect to Full House. It was actually surprising that even though you got the defending Super Bowl champions here, they didn't bring a big travel contingent this week. And that's, of course, based off of 3-7 season.
But my question to you is that you get a team like this that comes in, and I mean, granted, would they make the playoffs? To me, I don't think they would. So, would they pull out some different things that we wouldn't really see a team do in week 11?
Well, one, they have nothing to lose. So, their thing could be. It's hard to say that this is the Chiefs of their Super Bowl game or whatever, but for the most part, it probably is. This is Fox's America's game of the week, so it'll be seen in 95% of the country. Besides the other team that's playing on their station at this time. So I think what do you got to lose? Because here's the thing. You need to see what you got with this quarterback, especially if he's going to be there for an extended period of time. If Matthew Stafford doesn't come back, so if that's the case, you want to see what you got with this guy. You're just not going to hand the football. You're just not going to just give the season away because of one, your defensive players. They're not going to allow that to happen. And two, you get paid a lot of money, so you got to go out there and work. So no, I expect because they have nothing to lose, I expect them to do well, and I expect them to, throw everything, including the kitchen sink at the Chiefs today.
And we've seen it too. We've seen teams come in here and try to kick an onside kick at the beginning of the game, where the Chiefs weren't ready, right? Like, and then get it and start the ball rolling that way. So it's little things like that I feel like every team is going to play you a little differently, but every team's going to play you with their best.
And look, one thing we know about Kansas City, no matter what the point spread is, they always seem to make a game out of it, or make the game much tougher than what it should be. I mean, they're probably 16-point favorites, and it would surprise me if the team won by 3 points today, just because they,
We've seen it happen before. Could this be a game where it's like, all right, man, Sunday after Thanksgiving, we've gotten the turkey in us. Hey, do we come out sluggish? Do we come out just kind of beat ourselves?
You know what? That's not out of the realm of a possibility. I mean, we saw just on Thanksgiving Day, like the Dallas Cowboys, they started out slow before they pulled away in the second half of the game, before giving up a late touchdown and missing a field goal. But be that as it may, I can see that. I can see Chiefs offense stall the first couple of drives, and then and if it stalls and they come down and score, now and it hate to say that's what wakes them up, but unless they get hit in the mouth, they might not wake up until the second half. And it's funny, we talk about the second half. That's what George Karlaftis told me. He said he feels like they're more of a second half defensive team, to where that's when they,
And I hate that too. I hate the fact that
I hate that too.
For him to even say that, it lets me know it's like, all right, as long as we hang around, we can.
No.
In the back of their minds, hanging around, we'd be good.
No, he's not saying it like that's what they. No, he's saying that that's what he knows. I mean, mind you, he's a rookie, so he's living through this versus what history that we've seen, and because it's like you be trying to figure out why you're struggling, or why a game's much closer than what they should be. Now, granted, we know professionals, they get paid stuff as well, but there's still levels to this.
But I get it. When you have a QB, and Andy's asked about it all the time. It's like when you have a QB like Patrick Mahomes, do we always know, like, hey, we'll be able to come back? Like, we always have in the back of our mind, we can still come back and win this game. I mean, they've done it plenty of times. So there's not a small sample size there. I mean, you've got a lot of games that they've been able to do it like that. So even for a young guy to come in here and know that's really interesting, man. Because sometimes there hasn't been a team that's just like, all right, we're gonna come out here, punch you in the mouth, and we're gonna keep our foot on the gas and blow you out. Yeah. They haven't seen a team like that, so it can come back to bite you. That really can.
Oh yeah. Look, he knows it. I mean, look. And it's all about the start.
Yeah.
And, but again, the Chiefs, they can get out on top, and then we talked about it before, Andy letting his foot off the gas pedal and stuff like that. So we hopefully, I don't know if it could just be the particular opponent that day or whatever, but knowing that they're in the catbird seat, so to speak, right now, where they're in the front of the AFC, they have to keep their foot on the gas pedal, because there's only one bye. And that's the number one seed. And so you don't want to be in a position where you lose a game, because one, Buffalo already has the tiebreaker advantage over you. But but you also got the Miami Dolphins that are coming up strong. Of course, they'll win today against Houston, and so they'll go back to the number 2 seed. And so that's again, so the Chiefs, they can't afford any more losses. And again, I think when we start the season, I probably had them 15-2, 14-3, or something like that. And
that's right.
That's
14-3.
Yeah, and so I mean, but even 14-3 may not be good enough for number 1 seed. So you may just have to run the table. Yeah. That's just because of the level of dominance that the AFC East is seeing right now. And then look, before we go further, I do want to give a shout out to our brothers in the American Indian Heritage. This is American Indian Heritage Month, and we're celebrating that today here at Arrowhead Stadium. And I want to give a shout out to my guy, Chad Johnson. He is, of course, one of my teammates in high school, one of my best friends, and not only that, he's throwing out the first pass today. And I see, and look, I know somebody commented about the Dallas Cowboys.
That's your brother, right?
Yeah, my brother. Say he need to watch his mouth, because they cause
look, Aaron, I've been telling this dude, and I told the panel for our Monday night show that the Dallas will be the Dallas Cowboys and Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Oh no, look.
Yeah, I didn't want to believe me.
No, well, hold on now. Because truth be told, that was a matchup I had a few years ago. Actually,
we're talking years ago.
No. But I'm talking about with Dak and Zeke when they were rookies, and they, I mean, Zeke ain't got them young spry legs no more. So, but I would not be disappointed with a Cowboys Chiefs game, because one, that would just, oh my gosh, in Arizona, that would just be crazy. And then if the Cowboys do
Yeah,
make it.
he said last year. Exactly. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
let's see.
I told y'all this year, and y'all like, oh, with no Dak, Zeke ain't playing. Like it's a wrap for them. No, I said it's gonna be Dallas Cow. I got receipts. I do.
No. You have said
Y'all
it.
I thought I was
Hey,
crazy.
but
What?
hold on. But Q has said the Eagles. So I mean, right now, look, those teams look like they're on a collision,
Yeah.
head on collision in the playoffs. So, but look, we'll talk about that obviously down the road and stuff like that. But on the defensive side of football for Kansas City, again, we know we got Frank Clark coming back. But one of the things that I've liked that I've seen over the last 4 weeks is that this defense, they've been getting after the quarterback. I think either 3 of the last 4 weeks, they've gotten at least 5 sacks on these quarterbacks. And I expect nothing less than that in today's game as well.
Yeah, we've seen Spags draw some different things. I mean, starting off the beginning of the season when you had Legarius Sneed coming off of the corner blitz.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a couple of those already. Now I don't think he's sneaking up on anyone, but I feel like the things that Spags has been able to do, and not only that, I mean, you've got some veteran guys that are on that defensive line that are able to, work things out as well. So, I mean, from Carlos Dunlap to Chris Jones to the other side where you've got Frank Clark, and even when Frank isn't there, George Karlaftis. So
Carlos Dunlap stepping up.
yeah. Colin Saunders been playing well. He's calling himself the run stuffer, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you getting these guys that are veterans mixed with some youth, and I mean that can sometimes be a great combination.
And speaking of that, again, that's what we're going to see stepping up today. Because stop and think about it. You've got Juan Thornhill out, but what do? You got Brian Cook. I mean, you got these rookies. Again, that's the importance of having these rookies mixed in with the veterans in training camp and preseason and early on these games. So now Juan Thornhill goes down. You're not feeling like you're missing much because the next man up and what they're going to be able to do. Talk about his absence.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because week in and week out, we've seen these young, not only safeties but defensive backs have to go up against top tier receivers.
Yeah,
I mean we've seen the Devontae Adams, we've seen the Stephon Diggs, the Mike Williams, Mike Evans. All those guys have made them stronger. Whether you're getting beat, even with Trent McDuffie, and not only that, but there was no Trent McDuffie, the guy who you brought in as your number one corner on the right hand side.
He was out for 6-7 weeks.
Yes, and so that allowed other guys. Okay, we may get beat, but at least it's going to be a learning point. Don't do the same thing over and over again.
And I tell people all the time, I said that's what. If you go and draft these rookies and play them, you got to play them early so they can get that game experience. Because look, Joshua Williams.
But you got to be able to afford to do that.
No, but what I'm saying is that Joshua Williams. I mean, we saw he got beat a few times by some of these top receivers going 1-on-1. But Chiefs have been able to obviously overcome that. But the fact that they were able to do that and getting that experience, I think the second time around, especially if they go up against Buffalo again in the playoffs, you already know what you saw against them. And I think stuff like that they'll be able to learn from and bring to it the next time around.
And to that point, I feel like a lot of it too was Rashad Fenton, right? Like if I'm Brett Veach, if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I'm saying to myself, or I'm in a meeting, I'm saying, hey, if we're gonna get beat like that and make stupid penalties, let's do it with one of these young guys who we know we can bring up through the ranks and not let it happen, because we saw it week after week, penalty. Flag, get beat. Penalty, flag, get beat. So I'm glad they moved on from him, but now it's time for those young guys to take this the next step forward.
Yeah, so you can't get anybody to beat up anymore. Dude, you just really want to make you feel good about yourself. Okay.
I told you, man.
Anyway, okay, so before we get out of here, Steve, X Factor. We do this every week. X Factor on offense and defense for Kansas City to win today's game.
I think today is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. We've seen him. We've seen him just going up, right? We've seen him start from week one where he's getting just a limited amount of touches to now where they're not even doing a running back by committee anymore. Even though they said that the running back by committee is still going to be enforced.
We should be seeing Ronald Jones today.
I don't know. I think Isaiah Pacheco should get 19 to 20 carries at least, or touches.
How the game flows.
I think that's where his number should be. But I think he's going to be the X factor today. He hasn't been able to score. Yeah. Since he's been a starter, he hasn't scored. So I think that has to be a key as well. And
on the defense side of football?
I said this last week, but it's going to have to be Justin Reed again. We are look, the defensive line they are who they are, right? I mean, you have Chris Jones, you have Dunlap, you have Frank Clark, you have those guys there, and so you know what they bring. But on the secondary, you've got to be able to know what you're going to get there, and Justin Reed has to be that leader that the secondary needs.
For me, X factor on offense. Again, we don't talk about it much. Well, I like to, but I like talking about the big uglies. And I think I can't. I don't know who's subbing in for Tooney today. Looking at this, it looks like it's going to be Nick Allegretti.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Allegretti against Aaron Donald.
Mm.
Because again, even though they can't,
you're going to shade 2 over. You got to.
I know, I get it, but I'm saying, but for me, how do they defend Donald? Because if he gets pressure on Patrick again, you got to protect Church's tithes and offerings. So that to me, that's going to be the X factor because he's still going to come out, he's still going to play hard because that's just who he is. Mm-hmm. So for me, on the offense, it's going to be the offensive line blocking and defending against Aaron Donald, and making sure that Patrick stays upright. On the defense side of football, I'm going to go with. Go Frank Clark. I mean, and I'm gonna see what he's able to do. Again, he's like I said when I saw him when I was with him, he's looking good. He's in shape and he's looking good. He's healthy. Again, the 2 weeks off, I know it came at a probably bad time, but that should motivate him more to want to pick up where he left off. So for me, he's the X factor on the defense side of football.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
All right. So before we get out of here, Steve, as usual, everybody, including Miss K, loves our outfit. So we appreciate that very much. But let everybody know who styles you and where they can go and get some of that attire.
Yeah, they can go and check out my friends over at Dillard's Zona Rosa out there at in the North Kansas City. That's where they are. So go and go holler at them. My friend Heather Gray. You can talk to her. They can get you right for whatever your game day may call for. I mean, you can. They have ladies apparel. They also have kids apparel. So if you want to go out there, find yourself something good to wear, go talk Dillard's Zona Rosa.
And of course, as always, I want to thank Todd White and Todd's Clothiers and Taylor Suits. Styling me as always, another new suit. Appreciate it as always. Of course, next week's show will be live for the next 3 weeks, we'll be live on the road. We'll be in Cincinnati. We'll be in Denver for the Sunday night game against the Broncos, and we'll also be in Houston for the takeovers. So Steve Walls and I will be hitting the road the next 3 weeks. After the game, make sure that you follow our respective channels as we bring you post-game coverage, and we'll do something on the field after the game, as well as bring you some locker room interviews along with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes at the podium. And then, of course, you can join us tomorrow night at 6:30 and 7:30 down at the Soray Steak and Oyster House for the Red Hour. Myself, Steve Wall, DJ Q, and Uncle Sean Tyler will be down there following up the game. We may even have a special guest from Kansas City Chiefs join us as well. And most fully, we want to thank G.E.H.A Barbecue. As always, 5 locations. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're in line or you go to one of their 5 locations around the metro area and get you some pregame food to get you ready for today's kickoff, which is about to be underway in about 20 minutes. So, for Steve Walls, I'm Darren Smith. Thank you so much for joining us for the pregame cheat sheet.
Football fans, you can't spell gate without Gates, and great tailgates start with Gates sauces and seasonings. Named synonymous with mouth-watering tailgates. When you make your list of tailgate essentials, add Gates sauces and seasonings to that list. Spice up your tailgate experience with that unmistakable great taste. Available in 4 tantalizing flavors. Classic, sweet and mild and hot. Find it at your local grocer, and if you don't see it, ask for it. Visit GatesBarbecue.com to purchase any of the great sauces and seasonings. Great tailgates start with Gates.